everybody, welcome back or welcome to my channel. Today I'm actually going to be discussing a concept. I don't know if I came up with this. I definitely didn't come up with this concept, but I made up the name in my head. That does not mean this is original. I never claimed to be original, but I do think that this is something that I haven't seen before, and I think it's a fun idea to have, especially right before the New Year's, especially before Christmas. And if you've seen the title, that these are going to be books that I want Santa to bring me for Christmas Day. For me, this pretty much just means books that I want to own physically, and I actually have two categories for this idea, but these are just books I want to have and own physically, and it could be books that I've already read, it could be books that I really want to read, but these are books that I want to own physically as opposed to just reading as an ebook. So yeah, let's get into it. I wrote them on this cute little notebook. I got this from Papier. Is that how you say it? Papier? I got this forever ago. I was gonna do a book journal, and during that time I was in school and I just in my head didn't have time to do anything for the book journal. So for me right now, it is literally just a journal of things that are video ideas or just a journal in general, whatever. But I have all my books wrote down in here, so I'm gonna be kind of looking back and forth between you and my journal right here. So like I said, I have two categories, and my first category is going to be books that I actually have read already, but I just don't own them physically. And these are books that I love. These are not books that I read and I'm like, I feel like I should own this because I read it. I'm not that kind of person. If I didn't like the book, I'm totally fine not owning it physically. I do understand how people just want to have everything they've ever read physically, because it is very satisfying to see everything you've ever read. But for me, these are books that I really enjoyed and I would like to own them. So our first book is going to be Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins. Literally the second book in the Hunger Games. So random, honestly, that I don't own this book. I love the Hunger Games. I've seen all the movies a million times, of course. I've read the first book multiple times, and the second one I actually just recently read in the past, I think 6 months. I remember on my move here where I live now, I listened to the audiobook, or I finished the audiobook for that, and I just love the Hunger Games. I feel like it'd be fun to actually own all of the books, and that's the one that I've just kind of recently read and finished. So I feel like that would be the next step, would be the second book. I mean, I know what happens in the next couple of books, but I do think it'd be fun to read them, as well as Sunrise on the Reaping. I would love to own this book physically. I really enjoyed it. I read it on my iPad, and this book was quite beautiful in the writing and the storytelling. There were lots of, I think she did like song, or are they called ballads? It was music that one of our main characters she loves to write music, she loves to sing, and it's just, I love how in the Hunger Games there's that musical aspect, and I think it's more fun to read it physically and to just go back and look at it, especially as the movie comes out next year. I am so excited for that movie. Water break. I love my Awala. Does anyone else have an Awala? I feel like people are obsessed with the hydro jug, but I don't know. This little skinny thing is everywhere, and I can just hold it. I don't know. Not spons. Who would sponsor me? Okay, next is a book that I listened to on audiobook as well, and that is Tom Lake. That book, I feel like I've talked about this book everywhere. I don't hear too much about it. I think a few months ago I heard a lot about it, but we would bring that back because more people need to read Tom Lake. Tom Lake is such a beautiful, heartwarming story about this family who owns a farm which they produce cherries. So they have lots of cherry trees and they have a beautiful house, and the decorations are very well described, and I feel like I could just see this home so well in my mind. And there are these three daughters and this husband and wife, and the story is about this mother telling her three daughters about sort of her coming of age. I think it's from whenever she's 18 to mid-20s possibly, where she was an actress in this big production called Tom Lake, and her daughters didn't know this about her. And so it's just so much fun to see the past and present timeline of watching, you know, this woman come to know herself and to find herself, and then hearing her daughter's reactions, like, oh my gosh, you know so-and-so, because she was with a few famous people of their time. It's just a wonderful book, and I listened to it as an audiobook, and I listened to it in the springtime, which I absolutely recommend. This book is such a spring book. I think if I've ever thought of what is the most spring book for you to ever read, it is literally Tom Lake by Ann Patchett. I never even mentioned the author. This book is such an atmospherical read, especially if you listen to it as an audiobook. I would listen to it on my walks outside, and it was so much fun to just look out and see all of the flowers blooming and to listen to all of them talk about the cherry trees and the beautiful gardens that they had and all of these things. It was just so good, and I would love to own this book physically because I did enjoy it so much as an audiobook. Next is also another book that I listened to on audio, and that is The Midnight Library. And The Midnight Library was quite popular, I think a few years ago when Book Talk or whatever started to get popular. The Midnight Library was one of those books that I always heard about, and I just didn't really care to pick it up. And I feel like this is a very powerful story in a way. The Midnight Library is about this girl who is feeling quite depressed, and I would definitely look at trigger warnings for sure before you read this if that's something that could trigger you or make you feel some type of way. I would definitely look at the trigger warnings before you read this book, but I do feel like it's quite powerful in the way that she starts off the book feeling like she, quite frankly, wants to die. Like, she does not want to live anymore. She feels like she has nothing to live for. She feels like her life is meaningless. And I feel like that's a feeling that a lot of people can relate to, and I feel like this book can kind of just show you the bright side. I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I felt like it was very heartwarming to watch her grow and progress and to just start to really appreciate herself and to see herself as someone who was worth so much more than she thought she was. I feel like that was just a really sweet progression of her story and character development, and I would just like to own that book physically because the writing was quite beautiful as well. I really did enjoy a lot of that, and there were a lot of lines where I was like, ooh, I would highlight that. So I feel like that'd be really fun to own. Next is a book that I just recently finished, and that is The Blighted Stars by Megan O'Keefe. This is a sci-fi book that I honestly am not quite great at explaining sci-fi books because they honestly don't make sense out loud. When you start to say them, you're like, okay. I was trying to explain this book to my husband when I was reading it, and I was kind of like, I would pause in the middle of it and be like, is this making any sense? And he'd be like, yeah, kinda. And it's just hard to explain. I really recommend reading this book if you're interested in sci-fi, but it's also not super complicated. Like, I have not read many sci-fi books. I've read Red Rising and the second book to Red Rising. That's kind of as far as I've gotten into sci-fi. I like fantasy, but sci-fi is intimidating to me. So I feel like The Blighted Stars is a pretty good intro to sci-fi because if you don't really understand the world building, I feel like as time goes on in the book, you will, if that makes sense. You don't have to understand it in the very beginning. I feel like you just, in my experience, I feel like I just enjoyed the characters so much where whenever I got confused, it was okay. And as the story progressed, I really did begin to really understand the world and the politics of this story. But in the beginning, I will say, like, I just kind of went along with it. I was just along for the ride, to be honest, but I really enjoyed our characters. I really felt every emotion that our author wanted us to feel. I felt very stressed out during these action scenes and during these big moments, and the story is very high stakes, and I just felt worried for our characters, and I feel like that can just show that I actually connected with them if you feel something for them. And I feel like that goes to show, like, this was a good book, and I would really like to own it physically because I do want to continue the story. I don't know how soon I'll get to the second book, but I'm pretty sure there's 3 books maybe. But yeah, I would like to own this book physically. It was fun. Next is a book that I read on my iPad. I had so many highlights on this book. Oh my gosh. I would love to reread this physically so I can actually highlight and annotate and read this physically and just see our characters in my mind again. This is Lovely War. I've talked about Lovely War before, but I feel like I don't see it ever. I don't see anyone ever really talk about it. I saw Destiny Sidwell talk about it for a minute, and everyone moved past it. Please do not move past this. Please read Lovely War. It is so beautiful. There are multiple love stories in this book that are shown like throughout history, and they have so many different aspects of characters. Like, everyone is so different in this book. Everyone is so unique, and it feels like you just see all these different people come together, and it's so wonderful. And this happens in a very dark period of history, and I feel like this little love story that these two little humans feel for each other brings out so much light to this world, and it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. I definitely 1000% recommend reading this. This was probably one of my favorite books of this year. Like, I don't think I'll move past it, and I absolutely want to own it physically one day so that I can reread it and annotate all of the beautiful, beautiful lines that I read in here and cry my eyes out again, because I cried at the end, of course. And if a book makes me cry, I've talked about this a million times, if it makes me cry, I love it. I love that book. Okay, next we're gonna move on to our second category of books, and these are just books that are on my TBR. These are just books that I really want to read physically as opposed to reading electronically, because I have a good idea that I will like them. Our first book is A Man Called Ove by Frederick Bachman. This book I've actually started and stopped probably 10 times. Like, over the summer I was in such a big reading slump, I didn't feel like reading anything. This is actually the same case with our second book, which I'll get into in a minute. But I am so interested in this book, but I felt like I just couldn't get into it, and I think it was because I was reading on my iPad. I don't do well when I read books electronically, because then I tend to just click off the book and watch YouTube. I mean, naturally. So I feel like this would be a good book for me to own physically so that I can actually sit down and lock in, because I felt the same way with Anxious People. It was hard for me to get into it, but then when I actually sat down and read it, I read the majority of it in one sitting. So I really want to try that with A Man Called Ove, because I know that I would really enjoy this story. Okay, the book I was just talking about where I said it was hard for me to get into, that was Wild Dark Shore. Wild Dark Shore, I actually started on a road trip to Texas this summer, and I read a good bit of it, and I was really interested, but after the road trip, gone from my mind, and I completely forgot that I was reading it. Water break. And also, this book is quite bleak and cold and windy and rainy and all these things that are just not summer at all. And I was reading this in the summer, so it felt, I don't know, it didn't feel very fun to read in the summertime. It didn't feel like the right atmosphere. So I definitely want to get to that this winter. It is on my winter TBR. If you haven't seen that video, please go watch it and see all the books that I have that I want to complete between the months of December and March, and that is on there. And I would love to read it physically. I saw it in the bookstore the other day, and it was so tempting, but I didn't get it. But I definitely want to read that, maybe even next after this book I'm reading right now. Next is Cress by Marissa Meyer. I have read the first two books in this series. I read Cinder and Scarlet, I think. I have those physically. And the reason I actually haven't read this book is because I want to read these books in their old covers. I think the new covers are pretty, and I like the color aspect and all of that. But I love their old covers. I think they're so much fun. I love the first cover, especially of Cinder. The old covers of Cinder is wonderful, but I have to thrift them. I can't find them in a Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, anything like that. I've had to find them secondhand. It also is like a fun challenge for me in a way. Like, it's so much fun to just be like, oh my gosh, there it is, and I get to find it, and they're also usually really cheap. So I want to read that sometime soon. I want to read it physically because I've read the first two physically, so I think it'd just be so much fun to continue through the series. This series is a retelling of like princess stories. I'm not super sure what this one is. First one, Cinderella. Second one was Little Red Riding Hood, which is super fun. They all have a very big sci-fi aspect, and our characters, some of them are literally part robot, which is so crazy, but it's so much fun, and they're super easy to read, super quick to fly through. So yeah, I'm super excited for that. Okay, the next few books, I am gonna be super honest, I don't even really know what they're about. I've just heard people that I know, I trust their reading taste. I've heard them say they really enjoy them, so I can't give much on the summary of these books, but I can say that I want to read them. Fairy Tale by Stephen King. This is a book I've heard that is one of his few fantasy books, and I've heard kind of mixed reviews. I've read 11/22/63 by Stephen King. Really enjoyed that. I tried to start Misery. I don't know, I don't like scary books, so I probably won't ever read that actually. And I am interested in, what's it called? I can't remember the name right now, but I'll put it up on the screen. This book by Stephen King. People love it. I'm just super interested to see how he does in the fantasy genre. I've heard a lot of people say it's good. I've heard a lot of people say it's interesting. So we'll see. Next, I'm probably the last person to ever get to this book, but it's Babel by R.F. Kuang. I think that I'm now at the point in my reading career where I would be able to understand this book. I remember when it was first starting to get popular, I saw certain people read it and I was like, they have much bigger brains than me. I couldn't understand that. But now I think that I'm starting to read more sci-fi, more historical fiction. I think that now I'm to a point in my reading career where I actually could understand this book, and if not, I know that I could get past it and then eventually understand it. And I'm quite interested in this story. Let me not try to just guess off the top of my head. I just remember there's a fantasy element, and I think it's a lot of fun, as well as a historical fiction element, which are two of my favorite genres. So I'm quite interested. And next is a book that I think I started this electronically, and then I almost picked it up physically, but I think I ended up buying another book. I can't even remember specifically, but it's The Book of Doors. And from what I can understand, it's similar to The Midnight Library in the aspect where she gets to live different lives, possibly? I'm not super sure, but I remember reading the summary and thinking this was a super interesting concept. I think it's been a long enough time since I've read The Midnight Library to read The Book of Doors, because I tried to start this after that. And I remember thinking there were two similar concepts for me to be reading them back to back. So I think I'm now quite ready to read this, and I know that I would enjoy it, so I think it'd be fun to have this physically. Next is a book that's been on my TBR for probably 2 years at this point, and it is The Wishing Game. This is another one of the books where I literally do not know what it's about. I have no idea, but I just know that I would like it. There are so many people that I follow that I enjoy their reading recommendations that have loved this book, so I know that I would enjoy it. But for me, I just have yet to get around to it. Also has such a cute little cover. I've heard it's quite heartwarming and that people cry at the end. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I'm interested in reading that, especially physically. All right, next is The Will of the Many by James Islington? I'm pretty sure that's his name. And I am intimidated by this book. I saw it in the bookstore, I almost bought it, but then I saw the size of it. It's freaking thick. That is overwhelming, that is stressful for me, because it is a sci-fi fantasy, one of the two type books. I am not smart. I cannot get into those quickly. Like, it takes me so long, and whenever it takes me a long time to read a book, I immediately am like, oh my gosh, am I in a reading slump? Is there something wrong with me? Why don't I understand? Everyone loves this book, da, 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 all that stuff. But I just saw Sarah Caroli read it, and I trust Sarah Caroli because I know she doesn't read a lot of fantasy / sci-fi, and she enjoyed it and also understood it. Water break again. Stay hydrated, people. But yeah, she kind of has influenced me to actually pick this book up. Maybe I'll pick it up soon. We'll see, maybe in the new year. But yeah, I would love if Santa brought me this. Please, Santa. Next is My Friends by Frederick Bachman. I actually almost started this the other day on audiobook, but sadly someone got the copy before me, so I have it. I'm in line to get it, but I do want to read this book. I actually enjoy Frederick Bachman's writing. I read Beartown and I did think that was quite beautiful, but it was a little much for me, so I am kind of hesitant on him. I know he brings in a lot of tough topics, and sometimes that's okay with me and sometimes it's not. So I do think this is a book I would love to own physically, because I know that eventually I would get to it and I would really enjoy it, but I would have to be in the right mindset, because I'm not super sure how heavy this book is, because Beartown kind of scared me, because Anxious People was not super heavy, but Beartown definitely was, so I'm kind of hesitant to go back to it. But I'm definitely interested in owning this physically. Also, it's a cute yellow hardcover from what I remember when you take off the dust jacket, which I think is so cute. I love yellow, it's my favorite color, obviously. Last but not least, this is quite funny and quite late to the trend, and this is Reckless by Lauren Roberts. I read Powerless when it came out. Like, I read it at the peak of its time. I loved it. I loved that book. I was kicking my feet, giggling. I loved it, and I had so many annotations. I even did tabs in that book, and I never do that, ever. And I read Powerful. I read on the beach. I sobbed my eyes out. Powerful. I loved it. But then everyone read Reckless, and they didn't like it. But then I saw some people like it. Like, I think Haley Pham liked it. I don't know. I was so scared and I still haven't read it, but I know that I would probably enjoy it now that the series is finished, so I would probably feel more comfortable reading it. I don't know. I'm still kind of scared about this book, but I loved Powerless so much. I listened to My Tears Ricochet by Taylor Swift. That song is so Kai and Peyton coded. It's actually crazy. Like, it's all I think about when I hear that song. It's incredible. It makes me think about them and I kind of miss them, so I need to get back into that world and get over my fear and just trust my own taste as opposed to other people. Those are the books that I am begging Santa to bring me this year for Christmas. That's gonna be a hefty bag. I'm sorry, Santa, but I feel like I've been a pretty good girl this year. So I really enjoy that if you brought me that. Thank you, Santa. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please let me know the videos that you want Santa to bring you, books you've already read or books that you want to read. Thank you so much.